Hey guys, so I'm here to talk to you about my sermon design and structure and why I've put things where they are and all of that. So I'm just going to jump straight in. So the structure that I've used for the whole sermon is the me, we, God, you, we. And I think that just helps me with the introduction, the God part, the you part, and the inclusive language. And that's why I've decided to use that one. So for the introduction, or the me part, I haven't started with myself, and that is because I don't want to straight away jump into a story about myself or anything like that, because firstly for this topic I didn't feel as though I had a good story that could relate well, but I also don't want to be like me. I want to engage the audience straight away, and so that's why I've done that. And I've used the examples of Instagram and Facebook because it's relatable. It's something that most people will have an experience with or understand what it's about. Obviously more for the younger generation, but it's something that majority of the congregation will understand. And then we move on to the we part, so including each other or including the whole audience. And then I use the example of Facebook and Instagram as well, and it's a direct question here, so I do expect audience response in that one. The use of Kim Kardashian, Stephen Furtick and Jesus is to address the whole audience. You know, people who aren't Christians or don't know Jesus or Stephen Furtick are going to relate to Kim Kardashian. Again, more the younger generation, but she is someone that most people are going to know and be able to relate to. Stephen Furtick is for those people that are really into following sermons and looking at that, and they're going to know who Stephen Furtick is, and Jesus is someone that most Christians know. I would assume that most Christians know. And then the transition here from the we to the God is again using the word following, because that's what this sermon is about. It's a repetition of the following, and just moves from a world view or a we view to what does the Bible say. And then I use the scripture, so I straight away start with the scripture that I want to focus with. And then I move into 3 points, and I wouldn't, if I was going to present this, I wouldn't go, this is my first point, this is my second point, this is my third point. It's more to just help me with the three different bodies in this section. And so the first point is the two statements in the first section reiterate each other. So the part where it says the invitation to follow Jesus extends to all of us today, and Jesus wasn't just talking to his disciples or the really holy of holy people, he was talking to you and I. So that just reiterates that when Jesus is talking in this section and in most sections of the Gospels, it is to the crowd and that audience, but we can relate it to us today. And then the holy of holy people, that statement is more meant for humour. You know, we all know someone who's thinks they're the best Christian and all of that, so it's just a bit of humour to engage the audience again. And the second point is following Jesus takes commitment. This is an explanation of exegesis. It's more in depth of where I've got the scriptures from and what that means for that audience at that time. Then I use examples, a generalization of different stories within the Gospels to show the bigger picture of what it meant to follow Jesus. You know, using the different stories of what the disciples did and what Jesus asked them to do. It kind of puts it all together and shows how it relates to us again today. In the third point, following Jesus is worth it. And so the second point is kind of a harder point and a more harsher point, if you want to put it like that. But the third point shows that it's worth it. It's worth it to follow Jesus. You know, it is difficult. It's not easy, but in the end, the reward outweighs the cost. And then we have a transition from God to you. And so this is another rhetorical question, again just to engage the audience. You know, we're talking about the Bible and stuff, and some people can kind of get lost in that, and so the transition is just to bring them back to reality, bring them back to the sermon. And again, I've used 3 points, and that's just to keep it short, so people can go away and remember it, are more likely to at least anyway. The first point is make a commitment. This is somewhat of a difficult application. But it also makes it realistic, you know. So often you hear preachers go, follow Jesus, it's the best decision of your life, but they never talk about, you know, it's hard, it's not easy, it's a journey, you know. And so in the application here, I want to make that clear that it's not easy. It's not something you can come back every week and just go, okay, I'm gonna give my life to God again. You can't just give your life to Jesus every week, you know. It actually has to be a serious commitment. Also in the you part, it says, you know, commitments aren't worth much on Facebook. You can unfollow, unfriend, and on Instagram you can unfriend, but when we follow Jesus, it's a commitment, it's a lifelong thing. And so the use of the Facebook there, again, is just to show that it's all connected. I used it in the start and I want to use it at the end, just to tie it all together. The second point in the application is to pray, and this is a discipline that most people will engage with, whether regularly or here and there. You know, most people pray, and most Christians pray. Even people of non-faith are known in desperate circumstances to pray, even though they don't know who they're praying to or what they're praying to. They are still known to pray. So even if there are non-Christians in the congregation listening to the sermon, they will still have an understanding of what it means to pray. And this is just elaborating on that discipline, you know, what it means in the context of following Jesus, what it means to pray, and how that strengthens the relationship, and all of those sort of things. The third point, the third application, be in community. Again, this is something the audience will relate to. They are all at church and are intentionally in a community, whether they notice that or not. They're all at church. They're all in a community, and this point is just making that intentional. You know, actually deciding, you know what, I'm gonna get people around me who can keep me accountable and keep me accountable in community. This last section is short, just so that they can remember and take away from it. And I use the example of a roller coaster with many ups and downs, because again, most of us can relate to a roller coaster. Most of us have been on a roller coaster and know what that means in life, you know, the ebbs and flows in life. And then I say it takes a lifetime to get it right. And the reason I say that is because it gives the audience permission to get it wrong. You know, we're not always, as soon as we give our heart to God, it's not, okay, I'm done, I'm good, I can go home now. It's a continuous journey, and it takes a lifetime to actually get it right. So please feel free to give comments, constructive criticism. It really will help me better myself and better all of this process. And I hope this is sort of along the lines of you know, structure and what we're meant to do and the explanation. So I hope it kind of has all come together, even though it's a little bit messy. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.